Okay, good evening, everyone. The time is now 6 p.m., August 25th, 2020. I call the meeting to order. We have roll call, please.
Council Agency Authority members Harris,
Present.
Mashburn,
Here.
Sullivan,
Here.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Beatty,
Here.
Mayor Chair Roulette.
I am here. If everyone could stand for a moment of silence, and then it will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will move to item 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, Mr. City Manager?
No, there are not, Mr. Mayor.
Move approval.
Second.
I'll second that. Harrison Roulette. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Mashburn,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty,
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. Item 4, approval of the minutes. Are there any, is there a motion for approval of minutes, please?
Move approval.
Move
I got Beatty and
approval.
Harris. I got Beatty and Harris. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Mashburn,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty,
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We will move to item 5A, presentations. This is going to be the update on the LNU lighting complex fire incident. I just want to start off before Chris gets started and just tell you how much I appreciate all our first responders out there. You guys did a fantastic job. I don't know if words can describe how you guys saved our city and made sure that none of the fire got into the city limits. And I just appreciate everything you and your crew did. Amazing work, Chris. So thank you very much, Chief. And if you want to go ahead and jump in, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I can hear
All
you. Go
right.
ahead.
All right. I'm going to update you, as the mayor had said, on the LNU Lightning Complex incident, which kept us busy for a few days last week. There's a bunch of pictures interspersed in this presentation to just kind of tell the story of what happened as far as the incident is concerned. This first picture that you're looking at is drone footage looking down, I believe, at the end of Palisades Court up there in the North Alamo neighborhood right around the time as I was out there and watching the fire hit the city. But you can see how hard the fire hit the city at about the time it hit it, about 1:30 in the morning. Next slide, please, Crystal. So as I said, we're part of the LNU Lightning Complex. It's just to explain a little bit why it's called a complex. It's when a bunch of different fires come together and they're under one incident command. The LNU is a Lake Napa unit of CAL FIRE, and they're the ones that have command of this incident right now. And so that's why they call it a complex incident. That incident is right now is at 352,913 acres. It's 27% contained. It is now the third largest wildfire in California history. As of last night, it was the second largest wildfire in California history, but was overtaken overnight by the SCU, lightning complex fire. So there are several, and that's one of the complicating factors to this incident. There are several large incidents, fires that are burning in the state of California right now, which leads to a scarcity of resources. Of those 350 some thousand acres of the lightning complex incident, about 50,000 of those acres burned in Solano County. As far as the entire incident is concerned, 1,188 structures have been damaged or destroyed by the fire. Of those structures, 222 are in Solano County, and I'm very proud to say that none of the structures in Vacaville have been damaged or destroyed as a result of the fire. Unfortunately, there have been 5 fatalities that have been caused by this fire, and at least 2 of those, I haven't confirmed those numbers, but at least 2 of those fatalities have been in Solano County. Next slide, please, Crystal. So just to give you an idea of the enormity of this fire, this gives you a footprint of where the fire is and where the incident is. It covers 5 counties: Napa, Sonoma, Lake, Yolo, and Solano counties. And that area that I gave you, if you do the math, it's 551 square miles is the coverage as far as the area that's been burned by the fire. Next slide, please. Then drilling down to us specifically here in the city, you can see the red is the perimeter of the fire, the area that has been burned. You can see the different areas where it hit the city. And then the green, blue, and gray shaded areas are the 3 different areas that we had to evacuate. So as I tell you this story and then give you the timeline, you can kind of refer back to this map. The first area that had to be evacuated was the North Alamo, North Orchard area, represented in blue. And then the next area was sometime a few hours later, which was the Browns Valley area, represented in green. And then the South Alamo Peabody neighborhoods, as the fire jumped 80 in the afternoon on Wednesday, that had to be evacuated. So that was the last area that had to be evacuated. So this map just shows you how close the fire came to actually hit the city in several different places, several different times, and causing about 7,000 homes at its peak to be under direct threat of the fire. Next slide, please. So I want to give you a timeline of what happened and how it affected the timeline I want to give is a Vacaville specific timeline, but then we wanted to start with August 16 and 17. We had a severe lightning storm in Northern California, and there were reported thousands of lightning strikes with hundreds of fire starts as a result of those lightning strikes. And so there were several fires burning in Napa County. We were aware of it. We had actually both fire and PD social media. We had complaints of, we were covered in drift smoke really. And so people were reporting smoke and were wondering if there were any fires in the city, and there were no fires. And so we actually put something out on social media letting people know that there were no fires. And at the time, during those 2 days, there was no threat to the city of Vacaville. On Tuesday afternoon, actually after I had gone home, so after 5 p.m., I got a call from Solano County OES, the emergency manager, saying that they wanted to use one of our community centers as an evacuation center in case the fire moved down south. At the time, I was monitoring the fire at the Monticello Dam. I knew there was a fire called the Hennessy Fire, which had started near Lake Hennessy. I was aware of it. but at the time did not think that it was any threat to the city at all. So when I spoke with the emergency manager, I said, sure, we would use, they could definitely use one of our community centers, and didn't worry much more about it. And then got a call about 10:30 at night saying that they needed to use that evacuation center, and that the fire was moving south, and it was moving quickly. It was moving much more quickly than we anticipated, and the issue was, as you've probably heard before, fire creates its own weather, and it comes down, and so what I was basing it on is here in Vacaville, there was no wind, and we didn't have a north wind event, but the fire was creating its own wind and moving at a rapid pace. About around 11 p.m. that night, we sent 3 of our on-duty engines and a battalion chief to assist the Vacaville Fire Protection District, because the fire had made its way down into Solano County, into the Quail Canyon, Mixed Canyon area. And so we sent 3 engines out there, and they were met with severe conditions. And this was a picture that you see on there. That's a picture taken by one of our firefighters out in the Pleasance Valley area as they were fighting fires. Next slide, please. I want to show you this short video. It's about 30 seconds. This was as our fire engine, this was shared with me by one of our firefighters as they were driving back to help and realizing that the city was under threat of fire. This is what they were driving through, just to give you an idea of what they were going through. Go ahead, Crystal. They're driving south on Pleasance Valley Road when this video was taken, and as you can see, they're having to go through some extreme conditions. They're actually having to drive through. They're having to drive through fire as they're coming back to the city. Next slide, please, Crystal. So. I already talked about this. Solano County requested that evacuation center be open, so we went ahead and did that. I reported in to work. All of the chief officers reported in, and at 1 a.m. With the fire getting pretty close to Vacaville, and knowing that we were going to have to make some evacuations, and it was going to threaten the city of Vacaville. We decided to activate the Emergency Operations Center. And then at the same time, right around the same time, just a little bit after that, we ordered the evacuations of the North Orchard and North Alamo neighborhoods where we felt it was going to hit the city first. It's always difficult as when you're trying to make decisions, and you're trying to make decisions blind and based on reports. I have always preferred to make my decisions having good eyes on the fire. So I decided to take a drive out to where the fire was supposedly hitting. And the picture that you see here on this slide is actually at the end of Iroquois in the North Alamo neighborhood. And you can see that our fire crews were there, and the stand that they're making as far as the fire is concerned. Next slide, please. This is a short video. Go ahead and start it, Crystal. You can see the fire captain's having to back out. The conditions are getting pretty bad. Smoke is starting to cover them. The reason that I stopped the video at the time that I stopped it was because it was getting pretty hard to breathe. And that was about the time that a 40-foot wall of flame hit that area. And as soon as that flame splashed down, started a bunch of small fires, and the firefighters that protected themselves. They got right back and they started fighting the fire and putting out the fires that had started on the fence, and took attack what they call fire front following, moving up after the fire front had hit and putting out the fires. And this is where most of the damage happened as far as the city is concerned. There were 3 or 4 sheds that were destroyed by the fire. There was about 200 feet of fence. And then there was one house where the deck had started on fire, and the firefighters actually had to cut the deck away from the house so that the house wouldn't catch on fire. But very proud of our firefighters. At the time, there was about 4,500 homes in that neighborhood that we counted later on that were under direct threat of the fire. And just to put it in perspective, we had 4 fire engines total protecting that area. Next slide, please. So just talking a little bit more about, before I talk about the next bullet there as far as the evacuation of Browns Valley. In that area, the North Alamo, when the evacuations were called and ordered, the evacuation was very well collaborated. Can't thank PD enough as far as the coordination between our police officers and our firefighters. There were many stories of heroic acts by both police and fire in that area as far as helping people get in their cars. There was one of the firefighters was telling me about how he just had a feeling someone was home, and entered into a house and found an elderly couple that were trying to get out, but they couldn't get out because they had no power, so their garage door wouldn't open. So he had to open their garage door for them, propped it open with a broomstick, and moved. And they were able to get out and evacuate, and then he moved on to the next house. But numerous stories like that as far as our police officers and our firefighters just taking absolute heroic acts to save people as well as to save homes from any damage within the city. Fire continued to hit a couple of other different places in the North Alamo area, but then it crossed Gibson Canyon a few hours later, and so we decided to evacuate Browns Valley and Vine Street. I think that call came in right around 7:30 a.m. to do that. Again, a well-coordinated effort to evacuate that area. We sent our units over there and just trying to prioritize, because what we had as far as resources is what we had from what resources we had from the city is the resources we were going to get. The state was pretty much tapped. The fire district had their own issues. We did get eventually a couple units from, I believe, from Fairfield that were helping us out. And then eventually, I think, a strike team from outside of the area that helped us out later on in the incident. And then, as I had mentioned before, it hit Browns Valley, but I'm going to show you later on some unsung heroes. Our firefighters were out there. They successfully defended homes. There were no damage to any homes in Browns Valley area. But really, what saved the homes in Browns Valley is our prevention program as far as weed abatement and defensible space. And I'm going to show you some pictures that proves that here later on in the presentation. Later on in the afternoon of August 19th, which would have been Wednesday, we got reports in the EOC from the incident that there was a possibility that fire was going to cross 80. I've only in my career seen fire cross a freeway one time in my career. That was back in 2008, and I could hardly believe it then, and I could hardly believe it this time around. I didn't think I was ever going to see that again, but here I was and saw it again. It crossed 80 right around the Cherry Glen area, and that then threatened that southern part of our city, and we had to order the evacuation south of Alamo from I-80 to Puda South Canal. And as far as what saved those homes, there was an aggressive, what we call firing operation, where our firefighters, along with CAL FIRE, burned out the fuel ahead of the fire so that they stopped the threat to the houses in that area. The burn operations were so successful that later that evening at 10 p.m. we were actually able to lift the evacuations of the south of Alamo on that side of the freeway. Next slide, please, Crystal. And then as time went on, Browns Valley area was next, where we were able to lift the evacuations, which was on the next day, actually August 20th at 2 p.m. And then we started doing what we call a phased approach as far as the lifting of the evacuations. That picture that you see there is that North Alamo area. You can see right around where I was taking that video of where the fire hit. You see how close it got to the houses and where it burned some of the fence area there. But again, this picture is a good representation of how well our weed abatement program works. I know our fire prevention folks are very good about making sure, and our public works folks are real good about making sure that our weeds are cleared away, and it really saved a lot of homes this time around. And then as far as getting back to the timeline, August 21st, that would have been Friday, I believe. The last remaining evacuations were lifted. And then later that afternoon, our emergency operations center, we stopped staffing it and we transitioned it to what we call a duty officer only status, which means that if there were any issues in the city, I would get a call, but there was no staff in the emergency operations center. That we still had firefighters that were patrolling and mopping up in and around the edge of the city to make sure that the fire line was out and cold, and they continued to do that up until on Sunday, and then we kept a task force in place and staff because of the thunderstorms we were expecting, and we returned to regular staffing. We returned to regular staffing as of 8 o'clock last night was when the fire department returned to regular staffing. Next slide, please. As I said, I don't like to use this word because I think it's been overused as far as COVID is concerned, unprecedented, but this is an unprecedented incident, at least for the city of Vacaville. I don't know if it's an incident of this magnitude or a fire of this magnitude has hit the city. At one time, as I mentioned before, 7,000 homes in the city were threatened at the incident's peak. And I can't tell you how proud I am of not just the firefighters, but all the first responders and all of the city staff that helped as far as that I can sit here today and tell you that absolutely no structures were damaged within city borders. This fire reminds me of another fire that I was on, and it's been about 12 years ago, back in 2008, Freeway Complex fire down in Southern California. That was similar. It was a fast-moving fire that was going to hit one of the cities that I worked in, and we had probably 4 or 5 times the amount of resources on that fire. I think there were 3 or 4 strike teams of engines ready for that fire at the end of the day. there were 300 homes burned in that fire. And it is unbelievable to me, and it's only possible with the heroic acts of our first responders that I can tell you that there's no structures damaged within Vacaville city borders. Some of the challenges that we had was, as I had mentioned before, it was a statewide firestorm. So there were scarce resources. We just didn't have any resources to call upon. We eventually got some additional resources, but we needed many more resources than we had to be defending the number of homes that we had to defend against that fire. Kudos to dispatch. There's sometimes the forgotten first responders. They're definitely first responders in our book, and Melissa Costigan, our dispatch manager, gave us a statistic. I don't quite remember it anymore when we were in the EOC, but just the thousands of calls that they had to handle while also talking to the crews on the ground during this firefight. It's just incredible the work that they do, and they have to do it without knowing and seeing what's going on out there, and then answer all the questions that the public has. So kudos to them. Another complicating factor is the fact that we, for the number of evacuees that we had, we would probably, open maybe 2. We had, at one time, we had 4 of our city facilities were open. I'm sorry, 3 of our city facilities were open, and then the school was gracious enough to give us an additional 4. And the reason we had to open those additional ones is because of the COVID pandemic. We had to make sure COVID protocol was in place. People were wearing masks, and that people were physically distanced while they were using the evacuation centers. Some of the things that went really well this time, I thought, was as far as the EOC operations. As I mentioned before, the evacuations, the notifications, and the door-to-door knocking of our police officers as well as our firefighters worked very well. In all my years of fighting fire and doing these types of incidents, one of the most well-coordinated evacuations that I've seen. The evacuation areas were clear. They were pushed out almost immediately as far as the mass notifications, as well as social media and on our website. As far as information dissemination, I know that there was some criticism, but again, about as well coordinated as could be. The PD had a couple of folks working just their social media. Fire had the same thing, and also updating the city website and city social media at the same time. So we were trying to get information out as quickly as we could, and the most updated information. And I know that the information on all of those social media sites was consistent, because what was happening was the PD would put it on theirs, and then fire would just copy it onto our social media, and then copy it onto the city social media and website. So I think very well coordinated, and most importantly, I think consistent. Some of the places that we can improve, I'm sure there's places that we can improve. It wasn't a perfect incident, but we are going to definitely do an after action and make sure that if we have to do this again, I'm hoping we don't ever have to do this again, but if we have to do this again, we're going to be even more well prepared, and we're going to do even better. Next slide, please. I want to just I want to give a big shout out to Jill Childers, our fire prevention manager, and our code enforcement folks and our fire prevention folks, because I don't want to, I'm not going to minimize the absolutely heroic efforts by our firefighters as well as our police officers. But these pictures are worth 1,000 words. And this is in the Cheyenne neighborhood, and it is the defensible space. It isn't the efforts of the firefighters in this area that stopped the fire from burning, but you can see it. The fire burned every bit of brush and burned right through the defensible space and didn't touch the homes. And the only reason that none of the homes were damaged is because of the fact that we have good defensible space. Next slide, please. This is just another picture. I think an even better picture that shows you dirt doesn't burn. So you can see that it burned every bit of the brush that was available, but because there was good defensible space, and then you can see the non-combustible. We insist on non-combustible fencing that butts up against the open space, that black fencing there, that nothing was affected as far as the houses were concerned. So just like I said, I just want to make sure to emphasize that these efforts happen way before any fire starts and any fire hits. And the residents wonder why we are so tough on that and so aggressive with our defensible space and our weed abatement, it's for this exact reason. It's because when a fire hits the city, we're going to save a few thousand homes just with making sure that our weeds and our brush are well maintained. Next slide, please, Crystal. The community support has been absolutely phenomenal. You can see these are pictures here of just some of the things. I mean, the businesses, even though they've been suffering as a result of the COVID pandemic and business hasn't been as good, they just stepped up, and you can see the handwritten messages for our first responders on the different sandwiches and the food packages, and you can just see the amount of supplies that have come in and have been donated to the efforts. Just want to get out there for the community that all the needs of the first responders have been absolutely met. And while we can say that there are no homes damaged in the city of Vacaville, our neighbors are suffering in the unincorporated area. There are many homes that have been damaged in the unincorporated area. And so there are many fire victims. And so what we are asking as far as the first responders are concerned is if you are inclined to make a donation, please consider donating to. There are a bunch of different businesses. We just put a post out there as far as all the different businesses that are accepting donations for the fire victims, whether they be for goods or supplies or clothing or monetary donations, that they're accepting them. But the first responders don't need any more. We're good. Please consider donating instead to the fire victims. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Chief, thank you again. Wonderful presentation. Again, my hat goes off to you and your staff, the first line responders. Everyone did a tremendous job, and I can't thank you enough. And for the victims that lost their homes, obviously we continue to support them. And we have so many businesses out there willing to give supplies and money donations. All I want to do is kind of caution anyone out there, make sure that it's a reputable place that you're donating to. Sometimes, unfortunately, people take advantage of these situations. So if you're giving to, certain organizations, just kind of vet that out and make sure that's a legit organization that's going to give the people that were affected here in Solano County those supplies and monies. So with that, I will listen to any other council member that wants to talk. I'll start with Vice Mayor Beatty.
Yes, Chief, thank you very much. Before I talk about how amazing your department is and the firefighters who serve the city of Vacaville, I do want to mention, as you described, our unincorporated neighbors and a lot of tragedy that's there. A dear friend of mine who built his home with his own hands some 20 years ago, lost everything, and we know we have a lot of suffering outside the city limits. I do want to mention, this is like the second time in as many years as our firefighters have stood on the perimeter of this city and protected fire from coming into our city. Unfortunately, it seems like it's becoming a regular event, and each time, everyone in the department does everything they possibly can to make sure it does not reach inside the city. And we're so grateful for that. We don't know how to say thank you for that, but we are extremely grateful, and so glad that none of our firefighters were injured in the process. And whatever we can do to extend services to your department for everything that they've done, we want to do that. Please let us know whatever we can do to recognize and serve what the department has done to serve this city, not just in this third worst fire in California history, but again, a few years ago, it got so close. But again, because of the men and women of the department, it did not make it into the city. Thank you very much.
Any other council members?
Sure. I'd like to say a few words, please.
Councilmember Harris, go ahead.
I want to really express my appreciation for our firefighters, for our police department, for public works, for all the staff that did a tremendous job in organizing and protecting and executing an incredible feat for the city. I was part of the first area evacuated. It was actually my neighbor who was pounding on my door at 1:30 in the morning, telling us we needed to get out. It wasn't long after that that the police department had shown up. And I want to say that neighbors helped one another, and that was so encouraging to see. Neighbor after neighbor looking out after each other. As the fire chief said, the community really came together. I want to say special thanks to our city staff at the evacuation centers and the county staff who showed up, our Red Cross, the Salvation Army. There were just so many compassionate people reaching out to help those who were harmed. Just, you know, it's been a marathon really for this year. For city staff between, you know, COVID, you know, and then the fires. It's just, Vacaville has been hit hard. What I'd like to, you know, remind everyone, continue to take care of each other. I know that our first responders and really all of our city staff have been working tirelessly, and I'm hoping that your the leadership within those various departments are, you know, ensuring the well-being of the staff and providing some respite for them along the way. And again, just so very, very thankful for the way this city came together, and especially for our first responders, including our public works department. Words, as the mayor said, words are just not enough. It's almost impossible. I've never seen, you know, the wall of fire that came toward us. I've never seen anything like that other than in the movies. And then I'd never experienced just how fire makes its own weather, but it was something that my husband and I and the neighbors certainly saw. It was like, it felt like a tornado. It was, you know, you hear about it, you read about it, but until you are actually in that kind of situation, you don't understand. So my heart goes out to all those people in the unincorporated area who've lost their homes or had a lot of destruction to them. And I think that as we move forward and regroup, that we continue to do what we can for one another. Thank you for this time. Thank you for this wonderful city that we live in.
Thank you for the kind words. Any other council members? If not, we're going to move on. Let's move on to item 6, consent calendar. Anyone from the council that would like to pull either item 8A or 6A or 6B? Seeing none, I will ask anybody on the phone.
Yes, I have Julia Hahn. I'll open her mic.
I'd like to speak on 6B.
Okay, I will pull 6B for you. Anyone else? I'll take a motion for 6A.
Move approval.
Second.
I got Harris and Beatty. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Mashburn,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty,
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. Now we'll move to item 6B. Julia, are you there?
I am. So I was just curious where the park was going. Is it like for the medians along Leisure Town? I didn't really understand. That was it.
Okay, thank you. Is Whitsley available? Mr. City Manager?
Carrie, are you available to answer that question?
Yeah, I'm here, and Management Analyst Socorro Whitsey is here as well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, this is just a very preliminary step. This is the per capita, the Prop 68 per capita grant. There's also the Prop 68 revitalization grant. No specific project has been identified at this time. It's not required. We just want to make sure that we do not miss out on these funds. And Socorro, if there's anything you want to add, feel free.
Okay, anyone from the council want to comment, or I'll take a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
I got Harris and Mashburn. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Mashburn,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty,
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We will move to item 7, business from the floor. This is time to address the council with any issues that are not on the agenda and that are within the council's subject matter jurisdiction. Is there anyone on the line tonight?
I see multiple hands. Sarah Palmisano, I'll open your mic.
Sarah, are you there? Sarah? Maybe let's try someone else.
Caller ending in 488, I'll open your mic.
Caller, are you there? Caller? Is it technical issues on our side, or?
It looks
You gotta
like they're still muted. I am
You gotta press
unmuting.
*6. Is that correct?
Yes.
Caller, can you press *6, please?
Hello.
Okay, I tried it already twice now. Am I unmuted?
I can hear you now. Yes, ma'am. Go
Great.
ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. This is Teresa Stout. I wrote this down actually tonight because I feel really strongly about it. And before I move into it, thank you, Chief Concepcion, for that report that you gave tonight. It was certainly appreciated. Here's my feeling. There shouldn't be a city council meeting this evening, not with so many residents affected by the LNU lightning complex and the threat of lightning strikes this past Sunday and Monday. No, this agenda could have waited. because we all know someone who was in the fire. It's too early to carry out the public business of the city. No, we need to be in the business of being Vacaville. Vacaville is about its residents. We are the city. And we've been sheltering for months because of COVID-19. Most of our lives seem smaller and more distant from one another. But now we need to come together as a community with real leaders really speaking to us, to our hurt, fears, needs, questions, grief. We need to figure out who needs what and how do we, as a city, move forward. It requires more than a Facebook page at this moment. It requires real, live leadership, staff input, and community participation. A town hall meeting would have served us better. We need your guidance, and you need our strength in numbers, our ideas, and our love of community. Thus, this regular council meeting doesn't appear to honor the folks who have lost so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we try to get Sarah back on?
Sarah, I'll unmute your mic. Are you there?
Sarah, are you there?
Oh, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. I figured I'd be going after someone else, but wholehearted thank you to the community. My house got evacuated. Our neighborhood was awesome. Our neighbors were great. I can't say as much for VPD considering some things that I've heard, but that's not my statement to make. I have another problem with VPD. I'm sure you all know what happened last Sunday when a protester, someone driving the protest car was pulled over. I'm not going to argue if what she did was illegal or that's not what I'm here for. The main problem here is that the cops intimidated this young woman. They took her phone, they put it on airplane mode, and they took her and her car to an empty lot. The police explicitly told her that her friends would not find her. How is this not intimidating protesters, which I've been told repeatedly the cops are not intentionally doing? Are you guys okay with this? We need to have a citizens oversight committee on the police department here because you won't keep your jackbooted thumbs in check. Thanks. Have a great night.
Next caller.
Chris, I will open your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have my written statement. Hi, my name is Christian Cisneros. My sister, Giselle, was essentially kidnapped by the Vacaville PD on the 16th of this month. We came to Vacaville Sunday the 16th to represent and support the Black and Brown Unity protest. My sister and I were together the entire night until we were blocked in a one-way street by 2 police cars. I made a mistake that night. I trusted that if I left my sister with the same police who had been following us the entire night, that she would be safe. I was wrong. My sister was missing for 30 minutes. All I had was her last location, but she wasn't there. A group of us were using our phone flashlights to search the area when she called and said she was dropped off in front of the Vacaville police station. All of us were confused. Was she arrested, cited, detained? What happened? After the relief of having my sister in my arms, I had to hear the most terrifying story from her. During the time she was missing, they turned her phone to airplane mode, roughed her up. They kept driving her around so we couldn't find her. They literally took her to a random parking lot and hadn't charged her with anything. My sister is completely traumatized by the experience. Multiple officers were
Ma'am, you cut out, ma'am. Your phone cut out. There you are. You're back.
Each officer was complicit in this. I know why nobody stepped up. They're loyal to each other. They are loyal to each other and the system of power. No entity should have that much power to do what they did with no repercussions, while my sister will have to live with this trauma for the rest of her life. This was an egregious escalation of violence and terrorism by the Vacaville PD. Every city council member should be appalled by this display of terror from the Vacaville Police Department. Defund the corrupt Vacaville PD. Thank you.
Next caller.
Danielle Shea, I'll open your mic.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Hi. So I have a couple things I want to talk about really quick. I'll try to make this brief. I've seen on Facebook what happened to the young lady that was participating in the protests. I was able to watch her video account of what happened. I noticed that in her video, she had a notebook that as soon as she was released from the police officers, she'd taken notes to make sure that she recollected everything that happened that evening. I've had a couple of opportunities to interact with this young lady, and she's sweet and socially responsible. And to be honest, I'm just horribly disappointed and pretty disgusted that something like this would happen in our community. Protesting is a constitutional right, and the protests in Vacaville have never escalated beyond people just showing emotion. And I can't believe that this would happen to somebody in our community. I think that this immediately needs to be addressed by City Council, by the Vacaville Police Department. The other thing I want to say is that I've been listening to these City Council meetings for a couple months now, and most of the time as an observer. And I've noticed two things that really just stand out to me. Is that people are turning out to these meetings and they're engaged, and they're sharing their experiences. They're sharing their personal accounts of what's happened to them in this community. And the other thing that I'm noticing is that nobody's listening to them. It's been months worth of meetings now where people are speaking to their representatives. They're saying that they don't feel safe in their community. They don't agree with some of the things that are happening. And I'm just really confused about how this could be happening with elected officials who are literally there to represent our interests. The community is speaking to you, and I don't hear anybody listening. I don't hear anybody responding. I don't hear anybody taking their concerns seriously. So I'm not here to point fingers or to be accusatory. I'm interested in results and efficiency. So I think we just really need to start talking about what the plan is going to be for these people to get representation from their representatives. Your constituents are telling you that they aren't happy with something, and I think we need to start looking at what we're going to do about that as a community. I heard a lot of really good ideas tonight from participants. A citizen oversight committee, I think, is a fantastic idea. I know that I've personally asked for more town hall meetings in the past, and I haven't seen any of those come to fruition. That I think that would be a great idea. And the woman who spoke earlier about having this be a town hall meeting instead of a city hall.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am?
Yep.
Your time is up. Can you please wrap it up?
Yeah, I just think that there are a lot of opportunities to address what the people in the community are saying. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Shannon Danley, I will open your mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Hey, just for clarification, this is Edward Russell. I'm using my good brother Shannon's laptop because my battery went to heaven on me. So anyway, just elaborating and just piggybacking on the folks that spoke before me. The concerns, and I've seen on Facebook also what happened to the young lady, which I think is horrific. And for this city to allow something like that, when I'm sure some of the patriots in this town will say, things never like that happen. Well, it just happened. So now what do we do? And I think you remember I spoke before about protecting Black lives here. And there's always the rhetoric of, well, those things never happen in this town because we got wonderful people that take care of this town and we love this town. It's so beautiful and wonderful. But again, here we are. And to go further, the town hall that Carly had not too long ago, where he basically dismissed every concern that a person of color had, kind of directly correlates to what happened to this young lady, whereas his direct subordinates kind of just think they can do whatever they want because their superior is basically telling the fine citizens, the patriots of this town, that no, there's no such thing. Those things don't happen here. I can't believe that. I think his exact response to something was, I can't believe that those things happen here in this town. So again, the mindset. So I'm asking tonight that somebody on this board or on this city council I recommend that somebody on this council recommends that we agendize a conversation to address the safety of the public at large. Now, I don't know which city council member will stand up and basically throw themselves under the bus, because I'm sure the patriots in this town are going to look at them and call them names and call them a traitor. But at some point, like the lady previous said, the constituents that voted for you are talking, and you're not doing anything about it other than dismissing our concerns. We've had one young lady kidnapped. Now, what are we going to wait for? One black man to be murdered while he gets in his car with his back turned to 7 officers? Is that what we're waiting for? Let's be proactive. Why doesn't Vacaville get out in front and show the rest of the world how you treat human beings as a whole, and stop hiding behind the status quo and the good old boy system that has been in effect for hundreds of years? Thank you very much. Everyone have a great evening.
Next caller.
Rich Alexander, I'll open your mic. Rich, you may need to unmute or press *6 to open your own mic in response.
Did that work?
That works, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Well, I hope I come with a little better news than what I've been listening to. Strata 1200 is opened up to collecting for the fire victims. We're also doing a special for fire victims. We're trying to get the word out that normally we at Strata 1200, which is our apartment, you guys mostly know the site. We are on Facebook. We just put it out today. And so anybody can look on Facebook if they need housing on a short-term basis. We are doing short-term leases with no sign-up fees and no penalties for short-term. And for any of the long-term leases, we're giving 1 month free rent and no sign-ups. So we're trying to help out that way, and I've talked with the chief, and we're going to try and we've committed to help out with their funding their what do you call it, the Vacaville the foundation for the fire department for all the fire victims. So I just want to let you know that we're there. We are collecting goods and things, and we are also trying to help provide temporary housing as we can. That's it. Anybody have any questions? I'll be glad to answer them, but I just sort of want to try and get the word out.
Thank you, sir. Next caller.
Ravante Robinson, I'll open your mic.
All right.
There you are.
Yeah, I know y'all can hear me. I just hope y'all listening. So y'all know the police are trying to shut down our protests, and they're trying to intimidate the protesters. You know, I really regret not running this year because you know, we don't know what's going to happen, but I still have a responsibility to the people, you know, thousands of people out here in the city that y'all have ignored and ignored even more for years. You know, y'all don't know about how many people have come to my things and said, oh, I was feeling suicidal, I was feeling depressed, I was feeling lonely, I hated living in this town, but now I'm meeting new people, and you know, I'm becoming more of a part of a community. You know, I never thought that I would see stuff like this here, so I'm really helping people out. And I know the police should not be a political issue, but I mean, they take it upon themselves to get involved in politics and go to the lengths of endorsing and giving money to mostly Republican candidates. And I need people to know that just because someone wears a nice suit, just because someone shakes your hand, just because someone goes to church and they're a believer, that don't mean that they're a good person. They deserve your vote. Vacaville, to be real, is a pretty racist town. And I know that all the white people in the city council may not feel that same way because they didn't experience it. But it's a racist town, especially if you look on the Vacavillian page, which is full of racist Republicans talking about running us over openly, you know, but the police, instead of harassing them, they're harassing the protesters. They're targeting organizers. They've been calling my phone, bugging me, trying to get info. They've even called people that they think are organizing a protest. And we have to fight for ourselves because, you know, we've been shown time and time again that our local representatives don't give a damn about us. And I mean, I'm really speaking up for the young lady who got harassed and hemmed up by the police at the most recent protest. You know, I think the police are really just mad because when we've been taking the streets, we've been showing the police that we can protect ourselves for free better than they can protect us with the thousands of dollars that they get in overtime for the protests that we don't even want them at. Last thing I'm gonna just say is defund the police. That's it.
Okay, next caller.
Ian, I'll open your mic.
Caller, are you there? Ian, are you there? Star
Hello.
6.
Hi.
There you are.
Good evening or afternoon. Well, I guess just to piggyback on what you've already heard, I'd like to second that proposal by Ed to agendize these discussions and prioritize them for city immediate action. Seriously, like we've come to a point where like we've had police officers kidnap a girl for 30 fucking minutes. Sorry for my language. Hope you guys think this out thoroughly.
Next caller.
Julia Hahn, I'll open your mic.
Hi, everyone. So first I want to thank everybody who was involved in their help with the fire. Quite frankly, my work was blocks away from the evacuation point, and it was heroic effort on everybody's part to get that done. So thank you to the firefighters and all the first responders. It was really great. I do want to shout out World Central Kitchen as a group that's been doing a lot of good work delivering food to both people doing the work of getting people back in their homes and people who have no home right now because of the fire. And then lastly, I just would like to say that I don't think there could be harm in having a citizen oversight committee for the police department. Quite frankly, it decentralizes the amount of responsibility and control. And I understand that releasing control can be difficult, but quite frankly, it makes people feel more assured that the decisions that are being made reflect the decisions we'd like everybody to be making. And if those policies and decisions aren't being, having had some oversight by people that are outside of the system that is taking place with it, you just have a lack of trust there. And with a lack of trust comes a lot of tension that I don't think is necessary and I think needs to be resolved. So it's a good idea that doesn't really do too much harm. So I don't see why you wouldn't. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Next caller.
I see no additional hands for public comment.
All right, I'm going to close public comment. We'll move to item 8A, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. This first public hearing is a resolution adopting the Aviator and East Monte Vista Warehouse Mitigated Negative Declaration and approving the accompanying general plan amendment and design review request. Staff, Fred Videri or Saul Uribe will be making the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. The item in front of you tonight, it's the Aviator and East Monte Vista Warehouse project. If we can proceed to the next slide, please. The request includes an environmental assessment, general plan amendment, and a design review request to change the general plan land use designation from general commercial to industrial park. The request also includes the proposal to construct 2 new warehouse buildings and all the associated improvements at the northwest corner of East Monte Vista Avenue and Aviator Drive. Can we proceed to the next slide, please? The project site is located on the northern side of town, easily accessible by the Vacaville Parkway interchange, and you turn into East Monte Vista Avenue or Cessna Drive to go to the project site. If we can go to the next slide, please. In a summary, the project includes a 30-acre site for development. The site is within the Vacaville Golden Hills policy plan. And the proposal is for 2 different warehousing sites. One will include an approximately 305,000 square foot warehouse building. That site will be an 18.5 acre site. The second site will be a building of approximately 204,000 square foot building on an 11.5 acre site. The buildings consist of concrete tilt-up buildings, similar to the other buildings in the surrounding areas. The site will include 398 total parking spaces to accommodate both of the uses. And the request also includes a request to increase the FAR for building 1 from 40% to 41%. It also includes a request to increase the building height for building 2 from 36 to 39 feet. Those types of requests will normally be reviewed by the Director of Community Development because it's in a policy plan area. The policy plan allows the director to grant those types of requests, but because this includes a general plan amendment, this is also part of this project. If we can go to the next slide. This slide, it's the proposed site plan. As I've mentioned before, there will be 2 different sites. Building 1 will be located and accessed via Cessna Drive and Aviator Drive. The site 2 for building 2 will be accessed through Aviator Drive and East Monte Vista Avenue. If we can go to the next slide, please. As I've mentioned, the request includes a proposed land use change in our general plan land use designations. The request is to change the general plan land use from general commercial to industrial park. Prior to the adoption of the general plan in 2015, the land use designations of this particular parcels were industrial park. The property owners have requested to change that back to industrial park because they want to do an industrial project. Doing so will make the land use, the general plan land use, consistent with the existing zoning with it, which is industrial park, and with the existing land use policies of the VACA Golden Hills policy plan, which also are for industrial type uses. If we can go to the next slide, please. This item was heard by the Planning Commission on July 21st, 2020. The Planning Commission reviewed the project staff report, the presentations, and the comments received during the public hearing, and voted 7-0 to recommend that the City Council approves the project. If we can go to the next slide, please. And with that, I finish my presentation with staff's recommendation that the City Council adopts the mitigated negative declaration, approves the general plan amendment changing the general plan designation for the two parcels located at the northwest corner of Aviator Drive and East Monte Vista Avenue from general commercial to industrial park, and approve the Aviator and East Monte Vista warehouse design review subject to the conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Anybody from the council have any questions before I open it up to the floor? I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. Are there any callers?
Julia Hahn, I'll unmute your mic.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't know if it was said anywhere, but is this going to be another storage building or a storage facility?
No, this will be more for industrial type uses, anywhere from manufacturing, biotech, warehouse and distribution. So those are the types of uses that will be in these types of buildings.
Are there any other callers?
Caller ending in 211, I'll open your mic.
Caller?
Hi, it's Alicia Minion. I have a question because this project's come up in the past. So it's starting in Planning Commission in October 2nd of 2018. There was an attorney representing the Laborers International Union of North America, number 324, and attempted to appeal this particular project, citing various CEQA concerns. And then it was brought forth to council. The same attorney showed up at the council meeting December 11th, 2018. Again, this is for the Labor International Union of North America, number 324. In the council meeting, again, he went on and on about various CEQA concerns, traffic, I think pollution, endangered species, and what was the disposition of that? He also threatened to litigate. But I was at that meeting, and I mean, he seemed like really, his delivery seemed pretty definitive, like he had done studies or gotten third-party studies that address many of these CEQA concerns. And so what's the disposition of all those CEQA concerns? Were they considered at all, ignored? And if you did consider them, can you tell us what you did consider and how was it mitigated? Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, would you like to answer that?
Yes. So at the time, we were only analyzing a general plan amendment to change the land use. We didn't have a project description. We attempted to use a CEQA exemption, which the attorney challenged. And after discussion, we then changed our mind because the type of exemption that we were trying to do for the land use amendment was not correct. So the applicant withdrew the application at the time and decided to move forward with a project that includes design review and project description so that we could do the associated environmental documents and studies that are needed for a development project. For this particular project, we've consulted with an environmental consultant that helped us prepare all of the environmental documents that are needed for this type of development. And the concerns that were brought up at the time were addressed with this environmental mitigated negative declaration that we've prepared for this particular project.
Okay, thank you. Any other callers?
Caller ending in 897, I'll open your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, this is Chelsea Bowman with Buzz Oats, the applicant. Buzz Oats would like to just share that these proposed buildings would represent our 18th and 19th buildings built within the city of Vacaville. Our current portfolio of buildings here totals 2.7 million square feet and is currently valued at approximately $250 million. Additionally, these buildings are currently 98% leased and occupied, demonstrating continued strong demand for warehouse space within the city. We are very, very appreciative of the successful relationship we've had with the city over the past 35 plus years and look forward to continuing it into the future. And thank you for your consideration of this project tonight. If you have any questions, I am here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other callers?
I see no additional hands.
I'm going to close public comment, bring it back for motion.
Move approval.
I got Harris and Beatty. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Mashburn, Councilmember Mashburn, Councilmember Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty,
Aye.
Mayor Rolette.
Aye. I'm gonna take that as a 4-0. Are we gonna try Mashburn?
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
There we
Okay.
go.
Thank you. We'll move to item 9A, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This is approval of the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce Annual Work Program and their annual progress report to the City Council. Tim Patton, our Economic Development Manager, will provide the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. This evening, we have Becky Craig, President and CEO of the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce, to present the annual program of work and annual progress report to the City Council. The city has been supporting the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce since 1992 and values the organization as an economic development partner. The Chamber continues to provide continuous services to the community in general and specifically to the Vacaville businesses and visitors as is an integral part of establishing and maintaining a healthy local economy, particularly this year of importance because of the effects of COVID-19. The city cannot provide the same type and level of services as the Chamber has been providing to ensure that the Chamber and the city's efforts are to maintain a healthy and local economy continues. The city and the Chamber have developed an annual agreement of membership that will allow the continuance of these services. In 2019, the Chamber of Commerce and the city developed and entered into a new agreement for membership and Chamber services. As part of this new agreement, the Chamber will prepare a presentation highlighting the programs and projects that provide community benefit. And this also kind of focuses on activities from this prior year, in addition to future activities for this upcoming year. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce Becky Craig, who will walk us through her presentation this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to present the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce's annual report of work. Next slide, please. With me also tonight is Alan Haddix, the chairman of the board, and he may be available for a few words or questions if there are any. I do just want to, again, remind everyone that we are a nonprofit and that our revenue sources are membership and fundraising. If we can go to the next slide, please. Here's an overview of the board of directors. We have the executive committee who hold offices as well as general directors, and they are a diverse group of business owners and managers from across our community and our businesses. And they serve tirelessly at the needs of the local business community. Next slide. I definitely see what we have been doing pre-March 19th when the shelter-in-place orders were first issued, as well as what has happened post-March 19th. So I do want to remind everyone what we were doing before and hope that we will get back to one day is our advocacy, networking, connections, and workforce education. Those are the pillars of our programs here at the Vacaville Chamber, and we continue to do them, but we are spending our time differently than we were in the past. We also were able to, prior to the COVID, to update our website. If you do have an opportunity to go check it out, it is very dynamic and it has loads of information on it and has been well received by the community. We also were able to introduce our new event, the Vacaville Employee of the Year Recognition Banquet. There's a photo there where Vice Mayor Beatty was kind enough to come and be our moderator, and we were able to award that to a local business and employee in Vacaville, as well as we were able to host the second Movers and Shakers Breakfast Summit, which happened about less than a month before our world changed. So next slide, please. So with the sheltering orders, we have canceled any and all events and programming. We've tried to take some to Zoom, but they are definitely of a different ilk for our members and their needs. We instead have turned mainly to be an educational and informational and resource post. We glean a lot of state, county, city information. We provide messaging to the members and the business community through social media, website, and other media. And we do host Zoom meetings, trainings, events when they are relevant and pertinent. We do coordinate the industry reopening workshops in coordination with the Solano County Workforce Development Board, the Small Business Development Center, downtown Vacaville, as well as the city of Vacaville. We hosted quite a few of those, and those videos are on our website for anyone to be able to access, as well as posted on social media. We've hosted trainings on the SBA's financial plans, marketing forums, commercial insurance, and getting more digital with your business. So many webinars have been recorded and are available for local businesses to access, members or non-members. So we have definitely redirected our efforts and working with partners to leverage our resources. Next slide, please. When businesses were initially allowed to reopen, we worked with our local business community to do that education. And then we've also worked recently with the city's economic development and DVBID to help structure the outdoor space ordinance as well as the business assistance programs. We are very appreciative and thankful that we were consulted and were able to participate as well as advocate for those. We continue to encourage face coverings distribution. We have them here available for any business to pick up, and we continue to promote that as the way to get our businesses reopened. Some of the events that we have been able to schedule is trying to promote our local restaurants with some meal deliveries. We are getting ready to have a business bingo game in September. Think of this as a way to get discounts at local businesses and have a fun way that not only do you get the discounts by supporting those businesses if you play the bingo game, you also then get to enter into a drawing for prizes later. So those will be promoted starting next week here at the Vacaville Chamber in partnership with the Fairfield Sassoon Chamber. So it is a multi chamber event and crossing a lot of the county. We are continuing our tradition and hosting local candidate forums. I do want to make a correction here. Instead of September 8th and September 10th, it is now September 9th. So on September 8th, we will have the candidate forum for the school board, Vacaville Unified School District's trustee district candidates. And the following night on September 9th, we will host the city council candidate forum. Both of these will be streamed live on Facebook. They will not be in person for the first time, but we still do look forward to getting the information out there for the public to hear where our candidates stand on various issues. And then we are also going to convert from having in-person job fairs in partnership with the city over at Ulatis to going completely online. And we do have the Workforce Development Board supporting us with that. And we will have those on 3 consecutive days, September 15th, 16th, and 17th through Zoom. And we encourage any businesses who are wanting to participate to contact us. And then finally, we continue to look for ways to collaborate with the other chambers in the region, whether they are the cities or the ethnic chambers. We have been in much more contact and sharing resources and look forward to continuing to collaborate on programming now and in the future. With that, that's a summary of what we have been doing, and I'm available for any questions as well as the chairman of the board.
Thank you. Very nice presentation. Anybody from the council have any comments before I open it up to the floor?
I have a
Hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember Sullivan.
Hey, Ms. Craig, thank you so much for your presentation tonight, and thank you so much for the partnership with the city, especially now with COVID. It's so vital to have. I've been asking our staff a little bit for some stats and data kind of on COVID impacts and numbers, and we're kind of struggling to pull those numbers together. Do you have any sort of survey data or any sort of statistics on the impact to your members? I know you don't represent every business in town, but you've got quite a few. Do you have any hard data that indicates kind of the actual damage so far to local businesses?
I cannot give you any hard data. I apologize, Councilmember Sullivan. It's premature for many businesses to still decide whether they are going to be able to reopen or close permanently. So they are still struggling, but I can tell you that the impact has been very significant. I have many businesses that we talk with that are struggling and they don't know what is going to be next week or next month, and definitely not next year. So as longer that the closures stay in place, we are feeling those effects in our business community and ownership and management, and it is very disturbing, but unfortunately we don't have hard data. We did coordinate with the Vacaville Chamber, coordinated with our big 4 partners, the city, DBBID, and Visit Vacaville, to prepare a survey that is going out to the community to get some hard data, but I have cautioned them that I don't know how much responses we will get and if it will be a statistical sample because of the uncertainty that is out there at this time.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all that you're doing for the community.
Thank you so much.
We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anybody call in?
Julia, I'll open your mic.
Thank you. And this is mainly for council staff. I mean, you know, $50,000 in relation to the entirety of the city budget is not that much. That being said, it is a fair amount. It's a fairly big number in the abstract. So essentially, you know, I have gone to chamber events. I have seen a lot of that stuff. And I do understand some of the promotion that goes on there, but from what I've seen, it's a lot of the same people going to the same events. So I don't know how much networking is going on. The educational portion is good. I don't know how much is being made use of. And then for the job fairs, sorry, the job fairs have been, I've seen a lot of, we'll call it, what are they, recruiters for temp agencies, essentially. So I don't know, it's just, is a $50,000 contribution to the chamber worth the taxpayer money is my big question. But thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other callers?
No other hands.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment, entertain motion.
So moved.
Move approval.
I got Beatty and Harris. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Mashburn,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty,
Aye.
Mayor Rolette.
Aye. We'll move to item 9B, please, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. This is our first in a series of installments that we wanted to bring to the Council for discussion and direction regarding draft City Council Policies and Procedures Manual. This is the introduction section, and our City Attorney, Melinda Stewart, will make a brief presentation for you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the Council. The item before you tonight, as the City Manager just mentioned, is beginning the review of a City Council Policies and Procedures Manual. At your July 14th meeting, staff was directed to begin preparing policies and procedures, a Policies and Procedures Manual, and to bring back a few sections at a time for Council review. So tonight we are starting the process with the review of the introductory section and the section on conflicts of interest. Included in your agenda materials is a detailed table of contents and draft language for the two sections that are before you tonight. We're not asking for any formal action tonight, but rather this is an opportunity to provide direction to staff as to the general direction of the manual and any specific changes to the language presented tonight, and to let us know if there's any additional information you would like included or excluded. So this draft document and the process is really a work in progress. Staff is presenting language that is relatively standard in the industry, but tailored to Vacaville. However, this is the Council's document, and so it's definitely yours to change and to tailor as you see fit. And this is really just a starting point tonight. Next slide, please. So this is a table of contents. The one up on the screen is a condensed version of the table of contents that's in your agenda materials. The items in red are the sections that are before you tonight, and we just thought it would be helpful for you to see them in context of the entire table of contents. Next slide, please. So getting into the draft language, the introductory section starts off with a basic statement of purpose. Section 1A establishes the purpose of the manual as an instructive guide on conducting city business, and really is a living document subject to change by the Council, as I just mentioned, as laws change and as circumstances change. It explains that the manual is designed to set forth Council's expectations of each other and what the public can expect from the Council. It's designed to serve as a tool to provide information to the public that's conducting business with the city. And it also serves as a repository, really a mechanism to compile formal and informal policies and practices in one place. Next slide, please. The second part of the introductory section serves as a reference section for some of the foundational laws and documents that guide the City Council's decisions and govern city business. The reference to each document in this section includes a brief summary of the role and importance of that particular document. And so you see the list on the screen of the documents that are considered or that are included. They range from state laws, the Constitution, the California Government Code, to city-specific foundational documents, including, as you see, the Municipal Code, Land Use and Development Code, General Plan, which includes the housing element, the Strategic Plan, which you recently adopted, the operating budget, capital improvement program. We included Rosenberg's Rules of Order, which is the parliamentary procedures that Council has adopted, as well as City Council adopted policies. So of course there are other laws that govern specific aspects of City Council decisions, such as the Brown Act's a good example of one of those. We will discuss those under appropriate sections of the manual where they play a role. Also, with respect to the adopted policies, the City Council has adopted a number of formal policies, and to the extent they are related to a specific section of the manual, we will reference them there when we get to that section. But it's not the intent of this process to revisit those policies that have already been adopted unless Council directs us to revisit a specific policy. The previously adopted policies will ultimately be attached or referenced in the appendix, and we plan to provide a list of all attached policies prior to adoption of the manual. And examples of some policies include the proclamation policy, there's a roadside memorial policy, a general fund reserve policy. So those are just examples. They will all be referenced in our policy section. Next slide, please. So moving on from the introductory section, the next section we have provided for your review tonight is Section 4, Conflicts of Interest and Liability. And we'll start with conflicts of interest. As reflected in its title, this section provides a brief information about conflicts of interest. It's really meant to inform council members that these laws exist, and it's not to be a detailed education on what they mean or their particular application. The laws that we've referenced are really the main conflict of interest laws that will apply to council members. First is the Political Reform Act that deals with financial conflicts of interest, such as sources of income, ownership of property near a project that's before the council for consideration, gifts, and other types of financial interests. There's also Government Code 1090, which is a basic prohibition on financial interests in contracts, unless there's an exception, which there are many exceptions to these provisions. But unless there's an exception, the city can't enter into contracts in which a council member has a financial interest. And the third is the common law conflicts of interest kind of doctrine, and really that's a judicially created series of laws that govern both financial and non-financial conflicts. And the focus of that doctrine is really on ensuring that actions are for the benefit of the public and are not tainted by private interests. The section also includes information on where to get guidance. One place is from formal or informal advice from the Fair Political Practices Commission. They also provide, in addition to the advice they provide a number of educational materials, so that's a very good resource. Also, advice from the City Attorney's Office. So that's always available, but with one caveat that while we can and we do provide conflict advice, reliance on that advice does not provide legal protection or immunity to a council member from allegations of a conflict. Whereas, and I didn't mention, the formal advice from the FPPC does provide immunity if it's followed. Next slide, please. Oh, no, sorry, if you can go back to the previous slide, thank you. So this section also addresses a couple of affirmative obligations of council members related to conflicts of interest. One is that all council members and public officials are required to fill out an annual conflict of interest form. You know it as the Form 700, and that's submitted to the FPPC. And also, council members and public officials are required to participate in regular ethics training. I think it's at least 2 hours every 2 years. So what's not addressed here is what to do and how to recuse yourself if you have a conflict of interest. And I anticipate that that information will be included in the section that discusses conduct of meetings. But if you'd like that information included in this section, just let me know and we'll prepare some draft language and bring that back at a future meeting. And the last item on this slide is the potential to prepare a code of ethics. I bring that up here because it can go hand in hand with a discussion on conflicts. While separate codes of ethics are not legally mandated, many jurisdictions have adopted standalone codes of ethics or codes of conduct. It's a relatively common tool used to emphasize the values of the council and expected behaviors to support those values. They typically address such topics as civility, treating each other with respect, serving as models of leadership, working collaboratively, not using public resources for private gain, being truthful, acting with integrity, and similar matters. There really are two common ways to address these types of values and issues. They can be woven into topics in a handbook or a procedures manual, like we're discussing tonight, or you can create a standalone policy or code. At least two of our neighboring jurisdictions have adopted standalone codes of ethics. That's Fairfield and Dixon. I know Rio Vista does not have a standalone, and I'm not sure about the other neighboring cities. So if the council's interested in a standalone code of ethics or code of conduct, we do have several examples we can bring back for consideration at a future meeting. Otherwise, we'll just continue to prepare the manual, incorporating certain values and standards that are industry best practices, or as otherwise directed by the council to include. Next slide, please. So the last topic for discussion tonight is liability. This section really acknowledges that because the city is a service organization, risk and liability come with that territory, as that also comes with a cost. So this section in the manual, or the draft manual, sets forth how the city liability is funded, and is meant to set the expectation that the city council will consider the risk when making decisions and will support risk management strategies of the city organization. And lastly, this section also addresses individual liability of council members. It serves as a reminder that although the city organization generally does defend and pay for any damages caused by employees or city officials for incidents that occur when they're performing their jobs or fulfilling their obligations of their position, there are certain instances that are so contrary to public interest and public policy that the law holds that the public official will be individually responsible. Usually those are the cases of really willful or egregious misconduct, such as fraud, harassment, certain willful conduct, conflicts of interest violations, and discrimination as examples. Next slide, please. So the recommendation tonight is simply to provide direction on any changes or additions to the content of sections 1 and section 4 of the draft manual, or to provide any other general direction on the manual and preparation of a code of ethics if you're interested in that. And that concludes my presentation, and with that, we are available for answers or questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any council members that would like to speak on this issue before I open it up to the floor? Vice Mayor Beatty.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the presentation. Very clear and helpful. Based on my advanced age, sometimes I forget where processes began. You started the presentation by saying that the council had asked for this process to start. Can you remind me how that started?
Well, over the course of the past year, there have been some situations that have come up that I think the council, there were no formal policies. One is how to get an item on the agenda, and there are several others similar to that, where we had discussed individually the potential of creating a policy manual. And so we brought that back at the July 14th meeting to get direction from council as to whether that is what you wanted us to do. So this is really based on the direction at the July 14th meeting.
On that one particular issue, or as you're discussing an overall general?
On the overall manual.
On the overall manual, okay.
Yeah.
There was another phrase that, and again, legal language is sometimes confusing to me, but you indicated there was a standard language for all this, but we could tailor it to Vacaville. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, so much of the draft language provided to you tonight is kind of standard language in the industry, looking at other policy manuals, what other cities have done. So you know, we took some of that and we are just trying to tailor it. And these two sections that are presented tonight, there's not much tailoring going on because they're really recitations of the law, summaries of the law, things that, that will apply to the council as they make decisions. As we get into some of the other sections though, how the conduct of the meeting, what you want that to look like, how things get on the agenda, those can be tailored to what's going to work best for the council and for the city.
Okay, and then the last question here. So based on your presentation and the way you described how this appears to be new, in 128 years, this has never existed before?
You know, I am not aware of a council policies and procedures manual existing in this city. I'm not going to say it never did, but I'm not aware of it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been doing a fair amount of research on this myself, and coming from a neighboring government, we have a really robust ethics policy and a board policy and procedure, and also a policy and procedure on actually conducting the meetings and how the public can be engaged or not engaged and kind of what their role is and what their role isn't. And I've seen firsthand that it is a super effective tool at just creating a really kind of harmonious and transparent and engaging council meeting, not just for the council members, but for the public and the staff and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really excited we're doing this. It is also the one of the California League of Cities and the Institute for Local Government, which is a huge institution here in California for local cities. It's one of their best practices, and it's one of the key markers for a high-performing city, is that you actually have a robust policy in place that actually has your ethical values kind of stated and has your modes of communication and has your, really talks about how you engage business. So I'm very excited that we're doing this. A couple pieces that I'm super confused on that I hope will be highlighted in this proposed policy. The first one is the disclosure of a conflict of interest. So this has been a really confusing topic for me. Between my family and my wife's family, we have a lot of relatives in Vacaville, and several of them work for the city, and some of those are close family relatives and some of those aren't. I'm never really sure, when I need to disclose that or not disclose that, or really how I check for conflicts. The other piece of that is that in a lot of cases, especially in Yolo County where I work, we have board members recuse themselves almost every other meeting for some sort of perceived conflict of interest or an actual conflict. I have never seen one recusal since I've been on council that I could remember. There might have been one. And so I'm also wondering if we need to talk about the disclosure of possible conflicts. So periodically board members in Yolo County will disclose that they have a financial interest, or they've worked at a certain company, or they have a family member, or they're somehow connected to something, and they've consulted with the city attorney, and the city attorney has disclosed it's not a conflict of interest, or it is, or in some cases they sit out. And so I'm wondering if we could also have a disclosure on possible conflicts of interest, just to really kind of be transparent and make sure that the public isn't asking questions that we can't answer, and we're proactively putting that information out there. I got myself into a bit of a sticky wicket this weekend, or the other day, soliciting donations for some of the fire victims. A citizen pointed out that there is some sort of filing through the FPPC for any public official that's soliciting or raising funds. I had no idea. And so again, that's also sort of a conflict of interest, and there's a lot of paperwork that goes along with it. So if there's any research the city could do to put that in the policy as well. I know quite a few of us volunteer or work for nonprofits, or there's a whole series of filings and things we have to do if we're soliciting funds or raising money. And then the last piece of that is I think we absolutely need a code of ethics. And so I'm hoping we can include that in the manual. I think it would be great for this council or the next council to discuss collectively what our code of ethics is and really kind of put that out there. I think we need to have that discussion. We've had some tense meetings. We've had some interesting meetings. And I think this is a worthy discussion for us as a group. And I think it'd be a great discussion to have in the public. So very appreciative of this. That's my input, my feedback. I really appreciate the direction we're headed. And I think this will only make us a better city, a better governing board, and a better, council for our citizens. So thank you for your time and effort in this.
Any other council members before I open up the public?
Yes, I'd like to make a couple comments, please.
Councilmember Harris.
So, as we've learned over time, there are, many laws, if not all laws, that are really subject to interpretation. So my sort of concern is what's under the, conflict of interest, is there room for, interpretation that maybe not everyone would share? So, and maybe that sort of follows up on what Councilmember Sullivan was saying about, disclosures. I know that since I've been on the council, I have had times where I have recused myself. There's been times where it's because, it was a perception of conflict. And so, I purposely just went ahead and took, that safer side, if you will, of trying to, make sure that the disclosure was out there. I need to know whether, the laws that are under that section, or those two sections, where we might get ourselves into issues of interpretation. And then the other thing I was wondering about is, as you mentioned, city attorney, there's other cities that do have standalone code of ethics. I think that can only improve this council and improve the transparency with our constituents. And so I'm really in favor of moving forward with code of ethics. There's what's legal, and then there's what's moral and ethical. And so, and everybody can have their own sort of interpretation of what that is too. So it'd be nice if this group could really work together on identifying and solidifying what that means for Vacaville. Thank you.
Okay, if we don't have any other council comments, we'll open it up to the public.
Wendy Brecken, I'll open your mic.
Wendy, are you there? It's *6. Wendy?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I
There you
forgot. Okay, this is Wendy Brecken, and I just wanted to thank staff and the city attorney's office for taking this on. It is such good government, such good practice to put procedures into practice, and so everybody's on the same page about just how these procedures work. For example, how to agendize something. It's also important to have both conflicts of interest and an ethics code. I think the PRA, which is a Political Reform Act of 1974, actually requires cities to have a conflict of interest code, which they're supposed to be updating biannually. I saw that in the, I didn't actually read the code. I saw that in the California League of Cities manual. So I think it's really good you're doing this. And as far as the ethics code, the purpose is to hold, and this is also the conflict of interest code, to hold members of the council to a standard to avoid financial gain or making decisions based on personal interest, but instead to put the public interest, first. And it's always good to put that into writing. As far as a potential conflict of work with, let me try to say, the ethics codes in the city of Belmont and the city of Oakdale are other cities that have standalone ethic codes. And the city of Belmont is interesting because it actually imposes sanctions. I guess the mayor would impose sanctions on a council member in various ways for failing to abide by the ethics code. I think it's really critical that council members know how to recuse themselves, how to figure out whether they have a potential conflict of interest. And I'm not sure that the training every 2 years for maybe an hour or two is sufficient because it is such a complex area of law. It seems like they need a place to go and that would probably be the city attorney's office, so that there's just an open door policy to go in and ask, should I recuse myself in this manner? Anyway, again, I want to, this is a complex area, and I just want to appreciate staff for taking this on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller?
Julia Hahn, I'll open your mic.
Hi, everyone. So I do have a couple notes that I'd like to make. I do think in general, this is an excellent idea. The thing that concerns me is that the only place that the public has comment on it is at city council meetings, one section at a time. That seems to be a little bit not helpful if you want to actually have citizen input. So what I would really like to see is an advisory board have an oversight on this process. There are a lot of different ways that staff can go about this and different things to include, things to not include, and to have a advisory board that sits on it and is able to report back. It would be really helpful. The other thing I'd really like to see is that it applies to the other commissions as well. So like the Planning Commission, your Parks and Rec Commission, et cetera. Because quite frankly, ethics and conflicts of interest and other procedures don't just stop at the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Sarah Palmisano, I'll open your mic.
Sarah, are you there? Sarah? Sarah, are you there?
Hello?
There you are.
Okay. A couple of questions. What's the city attorney's obligation to address when it is brought to their attention by either the public staff, individual council member, or members that the code of ethics has been broken? How do the policies and procedures manual apply to staff? And then a couple of other things. Sorry, I lost my place in my notes. Who upholds the accountability, and then why is tonight's review just of sections 1 and 4? I think you guys mentioned that a little bit at the top. And then is this going to be, I'd like to echo Julia, is this going to be replicated for existing commissions as they continue to struggle with policies and procedures as well? I'd also like to advocate for a citizen input committee because you guys are our employees. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, before we move on, they have indicated about it going to all commissions. I'm assuming that that would be true. Is that not true, Mr. City Attorney?
The City Council certainly could adopt this to be applicable to all commissions.
Okay,
right now we're writing it for the City Council, but we do have that in mind as we're writing it.
Perfect. Okay, next caller, please.
Caller ending in 211, I'll open your mic.
Hi, this is Alicia Minion. I want to thank staff and the attorney's office for pursuing this very important matter. All successful organizations have a code of ethics. They have a compliance manual. Publicly traded companies, it's required. Local governments, state governments, federal governments, we all have these types of a code of ethics and policies and procedures. It's absolutely critical. I've never thought about it before, and I had the same question Raymond had. Like this has never happened before. I just figured there was something. I never knew that it didn't exist. I mean, we need a framework with constraints, and I'm so glad that you're taking the time now to get it done. And I'm actually for a very robust code of ethics. I think we need a code of ethics that, you know, really sets out ideals for ethical conduct, premised on fundamental principles of fairness, openness, integrity, honesty, trust, and Wendy had mentioned the city of Belmont, and they have a great, I think that this would be a great code of ethics to model after. And one of the things that they also address the conflicts of interest. And so, for example, if any particular council person has any question regarding any appearance of a conflict, actually what the city of Belmont requires is that they go and get advice, formalized advice from the FPPC. And until they get that formal response from the FPPC, the council person is not allowed to participate. They have lots of other good controls in the city of Belmont Code of Ethics. And I think it's also important too, it seemed right now like it's a little bit canned. Like Melinda said, you know, it's kind of informational right now, but I think it's important to address, to customize it, because we have council people that, you know, their personal jobs can intersect with city business, and just inherently their jobs could raise conflicts of interest. And we have one person in the nonprofit business, we have another person that, you know, brokers union labor for that could actually impact developments in the city. And we have candidates with family members who are city employees. So I think we need to be specific, more specific in the conflict of interest, because the consequences of violating conflicts of interest can be really significant, including personal penalties, invalidation of decisions, and really there's a lot of reputational risk. And it's all about, you know, building that public trust and having openness. So there's only upside.
Alicia?
There's only upside. There's no downside to this process.
Alicia?
Yes? Yes?
You're over your 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. So just
Right.
look out for an email. I'm going to send you some information that I think will be very helpful. And I'm also in agreement for having a citizens committee to help with the development of the manual. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
Can you hear me?
Edward, go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Outstanding. So the fact that in a real world, this city council in this city has to adopt and form a code of ethics kind of speaks volumes about where we are as a society today. If you cannot in your heart act accordingly, but have to be instructed and guided by a document, kind of tells you where you are as a human being. Also kind of dictates where this city is. It reminds me of the Emancipation Proclamation, where some folks thought they had the power invested in them by the Almighty to enslave someone else, and then out the kindness of their heart, show the rest of the world, oh, look what we did, we're gonna let you free. So we're gonna sign this piece of paper. It's not because it was in your heart, it was because you wanted to show someone else, oh, look, I'm following the rules, I'm doing what's right. That's kind of like this code of ethics. Some of these things, if you're not a human being, this is a serious problem that you guys need to address. I'm glad you're doing it, but man, it speaks volumes of who you are that you have to have it written down so you can abide by it. Anyway, also, I'll end with this. Kind of strange that this is being designed by your staff. How come it's not being done by an outside source, a third party, someone we could possibly be relying on? Because it seems like it could be conflicts of interest if you folks are designing the conflicts of interest. I don't know. Have a great night, folks.
Thank you, sir. Next caller.
No additional callers at this time.
I'll close public comment, and unless any other council members want to speak, we'll move on to the next item. We'll move on to item 9C, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This is a presentation about the CalPERS annual health rates released for this year. Jessica Bose, our Director of Human Resources, will make a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Next slide, please. Some background on this item first. The city contracts with CalPERS for health insurance. CalPERS determines plans, plan design, and premiums. This process is all governed by the Public Employees Medical and Hospital Care Act, also referred to as PEMCA. Annual plan and premium changes are always effective January 1 of the following year. Contracting agencies, such as the City of Vacaville, are not involved in the process. We actually just contract through CalPERS for their health insurance. Plans cover active and retired employees. The city negotiates the contribution level with our employees through their bargaining units. Those levels remain in place through the term of the current labor contracts. Next slide. Annual plan rates have not been presented as a standalone item in the past. A 2018-19 grand jury report regarding OPEB made the recommendation to present these rates in open session, and the city is in agreement with that recommendation. So you will see this presentation each year when PERS releases their rates. Next slide. The CalPERS board adopted their 2021 rates at its July board meeting. A full list of the plans and rates can be found as attachment 1. This attachment is a CalPERS document. City's cost is based on Kaiser rate in Region 1. 2021 rates for the city's plan that we base the benefit on for our employees has increased by 5.87% over the 2020 rates. Employees do pay a share of this increase. Next slide. For fiscal impact, there is no additional budget being requested at this time. Health rate changes impact half of each fiscal year because they are calendar year based. There will be a review and analysis of how the benefit costs are tracking and brought back at mid-year if needed. Next slide. There's no action needed on this item. It is for informational purposes only. Next slide. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any council members have any questions? If not, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Any callers on the line?
I see no hands.
Okay, I'll close public comment and we'll move to item 9D, Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, this is an approval of use of State CARES Act funding for use for our Small Business Grant Program and our City Senior Hot Meals Program. Emily Cantu, our Housing Services Director, to make the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members, and thank you, City Manager, for the introduction. The fiscal year 2021 California state budget allocated $500 million directly to cities to cover expenses related to the public health and safety impacts of COVID-19. The City of Vacaville is projected to receive about $1.2 million from this allocation. Vacaville received its first payment of $203,429 and anticipates its next payment this month with a third in September. Over several meetings recently, staff presented options for financial assistance for programs for local businesses that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and also for providing funding towards the city's Senior Hot Meals program. At the July 14th meeting, City Council approved actions to provide $440,000 for the Small Business Grant Program and $12,600 for the city's Senior Hot Meals program. The funding source for these two approvals is the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds. Subsequent to the meeting, staff sent the necessary documents to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, for approval as required. As of the writing of the staff report and currently tonight, the approval has not yet been received in order to be able to use the CDBG funding for these purposes. The pandemic clearly continues to impact our local businesses, and staff are receiving inquiries as to when they can apply for the business grants. The city's senior meals program is continuing to operate using additional donations that is projected to end October 31st. The CDBG funds, however, cannot be implemented or expended until HUD approval is received, and we do not have a date certain when that approval will be released. So staff is recommending this evening that the council consider using a portion of the $1.2 million State CARES Act funds in the amount of $250,000 for the small business grant program and $12,600 for the senior hot meals program, as those funds can be more immediately made available. Along with the funds that were approved for Project Home Key at the July 28th City Council meeting, if those amounts are approved this evening, there would be a balance of approximately $814,000 for other COVID-related expenditures. When HUD does approve the CDBG allocations, which we are anticipating they will be received, we just don't know when, the CARES Act funds would not be eligible for reimbursement. At that time, should demand indicate that further funds are needed towards small business grants and the senior hot meals program, the CDBG funds that have been previously approved, so the $440,000 for small business grants and the $12,600 for the hot meals program, would be used as approved. If it's determined that no further funding is needed, the necessary CDBG documents would be presented to the City Council with an alternate expenditure plan for those funds at a future meeting. So the amount requested this evening is $262,600 from the City of Vacaville CARES Act funding allocated from the state as part of the fiscal year 2021 California state budget. And that concludes my presentation, and the Finance Director, Ken Matsumoya, and I are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any council members want to speak before I open it up to the floor? Seeing none, any from the floor?
Julia Hahn, I'll open your mic.
Hi there, Council. So I'm just kind of confused as to both where this funding is coming from, why the hot meal program is combined with the small business grant program in the same agenda item. That seems a little weird, but okay. The other thing that I noticed, because I was watching the Parks and Rec Commission, and it seemed like the person who does that, McMahon or whatever, said that it was already funded. So, and he'd already received money. So like, did you guys give money out of something else? Like that just seems confusing. Maybe he was just referring to it was approved in the 21st meeting. Secondly, if you approve the small business grant program, when will those become available? Because I know there's a lot of small businesses that are really looking forward to applying for those grants. As we all know, small businesses got hit really hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to answer that, Emily?
Yes, I'll answer most of it, and then I'll probably punt to Ken on where to talk a little bit about where the funds are coming from. So the small business grants and senior hot meal program recommendation are included in the same staff report because they were previously approved from the same funding source. So it was CDBG COVID-related funding primarily. So that's why they're in the same staff report. They are unrelated programs, yes, but the same funding source is being requested from the council to spend on those programs. So that applies to this staff report as well. It's the same funding source that we're requesting for these two programs. As far as if the program has already been funded, the program is pending the approved CDBG funds, but we have to have approval by HUD. Otherwise, that program is running solely on donations received. And those donations are projected to end about the end of October right now. And when will the small grants be available? I'm anticipating releasing the application in between 1 and 2 weeks, because we need to, get our staff ready to deploy that to the community and be ready to process those applications as quickly as possible to get those funds to the businesses as quickly as possible after they apply. And then Ken, would you like to talk about where the funds are coming from, please?
Yes, thanks, Emily. Good night. Good evening, council. So the funds, they were allocated from the state. So as part of the state's budget that recently was approved going to this fiscal year, CARES funding is being allocated to all the cities in the state based off of population. And so based off of that population factor, the city's allocation is 1.2 million. So it's being funded through the state, and it's the CARES funding that they're passing on to the cities as part of their budget.
Thank you. Next caller.
Sarah Palmisano, I'll open your mic.
Sarah, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
There we go. So no one answered the question as to why Sean McMahon seemed to know that his program would be funded at the commission meeting. Can anyone answer that question?
Is that all you needed to know, or did you have something else?
That's my question.
Okay, perfect. Emily, can you follow up with that question, please?
Yes. I would have to check with Mr. McMahon directly. However, I would think it is because the CDBG funds were approved by the council at the prior meeting. So yes, the Parks and Recs Commission would definitely be made aware of that, that those funds were coming towards that program.
Perfect, thank you. Any other callers?
Caller ending in 488, I'll open your mic.
Thank you. Caller, are you there?
Okay, good evening again. This is Teresa Stout. Emily, you and I have had a few discussions regarding the senior meals program, as you recall. And because I've taken a little bit of issue with it, because there's another program that it can be covered with CDBG funds on a regular basis, and that is the senior Meals on Wheels. So when we spoke after the July 14th meeting, after item 9B, the table said that you were going to serve 72 folks. Then when I spoke with one of the staff members following the meeting, you guys were going to take instead a 2-week break and then be going to the end of September. And you were not going to serve the people on the wait list. Further, when the city council voted, they voted to go ahead and send a grant request to the CDBG. When I spoke to our representative at HUD at the San Francisco office 10 days ago, that money, of course, has not been approved, and it was not going to be approved at that time. As you know, it takes a while for this thing to go through, although she saw no reason for it not to. one of the items on your amendment said that you were looking at low-income seniors. There is no, nothing on the application that asks about income at all. So I'm still finding a little bit of problem with that particular program and would like some answers. How many people are you planning on serving? How long are you actually going to? And are we ever going to go to Meals on Wheels so that this becomes a program that stays with us at $4 a meal instead of 10 or 8, depending on which day of the week it is? Thank you.
Thank you. Emily, would you like to take that?
Yes. So at this time, the City Council has not been presented with or considered the Meals on Wheels program. The council has considered and approved the Senior Hot Meals program that's currently in operation. At the current number of seniors that are being served, it does fluctuate as people join and then, drop off and they no longer have the need. 47 are being served. There are 8 on the waiting list. This funding would serve all 55 people. So 47 currently served plus 8 that are on the waiting list. And this should extend, and depending as people come on and off the program, the total money is not exact of what will be spent every week. It can fluctuate, but an estimate would be, currently it's planned to end at the end of October, and these funds could extend that program up to about an additional 8 weeks.
Great, thank you. Any other callers?
Lynn, I'll open your mic.
Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Wonderful. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to the fire responders, all the fire workers and city for helping to keep us safe. We got evacuated and that was extremely scary. It was good to come back, and it was a real relief to hear that people are okay. One of my, I'm a musician, and one of my bandmates, they lost their entire ranch up on the Mixed Canyon area, Pleasantville Road. So we know that there's a real need for help. Wanted to give a shout out to Leslie Silver and the School of Rock. I'm going to be working with them for Concert for a Cause on September 6th. I wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. The funds that are going to be raised are, everybody's being directed to the Solano Community Foundation Disaster Relief Fund. It's an honor to be hopefully involved with that, and I'm going to be getting behind them as much as I can. I also wanted to give a shout out to Councilman Nolan Sullivan. Thank you for bringing up this topic at the last meeting, which is why we're talking about it this time again, hopefully. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate your attention to it. As a future merchant, I do not currently have a business open downtown, but I am working to make sure that that does happen. And again, as I had stated at the last meeting that I was at with you all, that I've been talking with business development since March about doing this. So my intentions have already been well made. And I'm looking forward to working with people in town. My question here is, now that we have these applications being put together, is council only going to be considering those grants and those fundings made available to existing merchants? I do not have my business license to conduct business in town yet. I have owned a shop in Fairfield locally before that has since closed. So I do have experience in running a business in the area, but I just wanted to get a question answered about if it is indeed possible that a new merchant would be able to apply for this grant program. And I thank you very much. Hopefully you guys can answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily, can you answer that?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, this particular funding is to be used for businesses that have been, that are existing and directly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. So unfortunately, in the case where it's not an existing business, they would not be eligible for this grant funding.
Thank you. Any other callers tonight?
Ravante Robinson, I'll open your mic.
So the question was asked earlier about why did Sean McMahon know about, the funds being approved or whatever. And since y'all won't answer the question, I'll answer it. It's because Sean McMahon is Ron Roulette's little buddy, and he's trying real hard to prop him up to put him on the city council so that he can keep his power and keep making the same good old boys decision that they've been making for 10 years.
All right, do we have any other callers?
I have Lynn's hand up again. Should I re-recognize him?
No. We're going to go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the council. Does the council have any comments or would like to make a motion?
Move approval.
I got Harris
Second.
and Beatty as a second. Can we have roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Mashburn,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty,
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We'll move to item 9E. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. It's time for our regular update from our Fire Chief on the COVID-19 efforts that are happening right now. Thankfully, there's not a whole heck of a lot to update, but Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Chief, are you there?
Sorry about that. Forgot to unmute. You can hear me now, right?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Next slide, please, Crystal. So the latest numbers as far as California is concerned is just a bit over 673,000 cases, which is nearly 100,000 more than 2 weeks ago from our previous council meeting. Deaths are up to 12,257, which is about almost 1,800 more than 2 weeks ago. And then as far as the 14-day positivity, it sits at 6.3%, which is about 0.2% more. So positivity rate is up a little bit as far as California is concerned. In Solano County, 5,231 cases with 292 active cases. The number of cases increased by 893. Active cases also increased by about 71 from 2 weeks ago. Hospitalizations are at 32, which is a decrease. And then 46 deaths, which is 5 additional from 2 weeks ago. 7-day positivity rate, unfortunately, is up again. Was in the fours as far as percentage, and now it's up to 5.7%. And Vacaville is up to 888 cases as of this afternoon. Next slide, please. There hasn't been any changes as far as the orders, as far as the governor is concerned, or and neither have there been any changes as far as the county orders. As far as Vacaville, you heard a previous item that CARES Act funding, the second payment did come in, I believe this week, as reported to by our finance director, Ken Masmia. And then as far as the businesses, as far as outdoor operations, since a lot of the indoor operations are not allowed by the orders, the latest report is there's been over 20 restaurants that have been granted temporary outdoor dining permits, and then 3 businesses have applied for outdoor operations. Unfortunately, because of the heat wave and then because of the fire, a lot of the outdoor dining and the outdoor operations have not been able to happen just because of those two, the unhealthy air and that. So it just seems like our businesses, unfortunately, are just not able to catch a break lately. Complaints are continuing, even with the fire and the other incidents happening. Complaints still do come in at a pretty steady rate into code enforcement in other parts of the city. And the city is continuing our education and engagement efforts as far as trying to gain compliance as far as the county as well as the state orders are concerned. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the presentation. Any council members have any questions or concerns? Anybody from the floor?
No hands.
Okay, we will move on to item 10, reports of city manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just have one quick item. Throughout the budget review process, staff mentioned to City Council that in an effort to keep the council informed of the impacts and effects of COVID-19 on our fiscal budget, that we would come back on a fairly regular basis with updates. We had anticipated at that time that we would like to come back in September, but we're requesting that we can come back to the council in October when we actually have a full quarter's worth of information and data that we can provide the council a more accurate picture of the financial impacts thus far. And so with that, just wanted to make sure everyone's aware that we will be coming back to the council with the full report on the quarterly update in October. With that, that concludes my presentation and report.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 11, reports of city council. Does anyone from the city council want to speak on anything?
I have a couple.
Councilmember Sullivan, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My first is actually a question, a point of clarification. On the policy and code of ethics item from earlier today, did we decide to move forward with the code of ethics, city manager? Or did you get the instruction from us you needed, or did we not? I'm just a little unclear of where we ended that discussion.
I think the level of comments that we received from the council was in favor of a separate document. So I think we're prepared to bring back examples for the council's consideration. And if there's additional direction at that time, we can respond accordingly.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. My second point tonight is an update on the homeless 2x2. And so the city manager and I have had some discussions over the last week or so. The last meeting we had, Vice Mayor Beatty and I reported out that there was some kind of mutual discussion to partner with the county and bring some staff in and talk about Project Home Key and Project Room Key, maybe explore a project. We had this other kind of public forum sort of in the works. Things have sort of crashed and burned since that meeting and not on the city side. So the county basically has sort of withdrawn from discussions at this point in time, but we're not 100% sure what exactly happened. Things started sort of changing course a few months back and then changed course again the last time we met at the 2x2. And so this week it was reported to me from our staff that county staff had basically indicated that the 2x2 would not be continued until after January. And so sort of disappointed that we're walking away from the table, but I do want to point out it was not the city. We actually put in a pretty solid effort. The county has decided to sort of walk away from these discussions for the next few months. So I am pretty disappointed. I know the rest of you will probably be fairly disappointed, but I wanted you to hear kind of what happened officially from me and Vice Mayor Beatty. We really did our best and we attempted to pull together some public forums and really tried to figure out some options and some ideas for Vacaville's homeless in partnership with the county. And so we may want to discuss at a future meeting a strategy alone as a city, or what we're going to do as a city, because we were kind of waiting for this collaborative partnership, but unfortunately that's not going to materialize for whatever reason. And at this point, it probably won't be until January that we have that discussion. Vice Mayor Beatty, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or if anybody has any questions about that, but I want to point that out real quick. And one last point.
Yeah, thanks for that report. I believe it's a completely accurate report. Not sure what's happened in that regard. We put in a lot of work and effort, some great suggestions from the city side. So I'm not sure what direction they're heading, but we're open to solving this issue that we have.
Any other council members have any comments?
Okay, I got one more statement, Ron. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In my last statement, so there was a commenter earlier today, Mr. Russell, made a statement to something to the effect of council members speaking up. And so I am going to speak up again, but it's not really in response to his comment. It's basically the same thing I said at the last meeting. Protests are a call for dialogue. They're a call for discussion, and we can't arrest our way out of protests. We can't enforce our way out of protests. The community is screaming for public dialogue and engagement, and we're having more and more people show up at meetings and ask for a discussion. So I think once again, I'm sort of making a plea to the city manager and to the police chief to come up with ways to create dialogue and back and forth discussions going forward. I know a lot of suggestions and things cannot be implemented right on their face, but we have a very significant portion of our residents that have some issues and don't feel safe and want a place to share those concerns productively. And I think we have an opportunity right now to lead other cities in California, lead other cities in the nation as an example of how you deal with these issues and how you engage with your citizens. And I really hope we don't miss this opportunity and stay silent and not engage. Now is the time to talk. It's not the time to arrest. And I hope that we can create community discussions that will help us move forward as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member want to make comment?
I'd like to make a couple comments.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Harris.
One thing, I am very disappointed in the report that Vice Mayor Beatty and Council Member Sullivan brought back about the county. It's a bit discouraging to have them pull out. I know there's a lot on everybody's plate, but it's still an important discussion topic that needs to continue moving forward. I would also, like to say that, in regard to the committees that I sit on, the Air Quality Board has not met for the last couple of months, but I want to remind the council and staff and all the residents that the air quality is really horrendous right now, and it has been for several days. So really people should be, the best they can, staying indoors, keeping their kids indoors until that air quality improves. I mean, we're not in the bright red or purple like we were the last few days, but it's still unhealthy, especially for those who have compromised systems. So just a reminder, if you're out and about, wear your mask and don't stay out too long.
That's a great comment. Thank you very much, Councilmember Harris. Any other council members want to comment on anything? Seeing none, I do have a couple things that I wanted to go over. First of all, again, I can't praise our staff, the first line responders, everyone that was instrumental in the neighborhoods, the community that jumped in and made sure that we kept everyone safe here in the city of Vacaville. I did mention in the earlier presentation from the chief that you need to be very careful of, who you're donating to. I know we all have open hearts and we want to do what's best for our community. If you want, I know that there is one vetted that's called We Are Vacaville. You can go online. I think it's up. The website's up and running. Also, it's on Facebook. We Are Vacaville. It's a community outreach for those in need. It's an essential resource, basically, that you guys can go on there or send people there to find resources. The other thing on the same lines is we as a city council have taken action to put a moratorium on VROBs, Airbnbs, and I'm going to ask that we have staff look into maybe doing a temporary, make it allowed for those fire victims that lost their house. They still want to stay near. If there's ways that we can get them into a VROB or an Airbnb while they have their houses rebuilt, I would like to put that maybe in the city manager's hands, maybe come back with something so we can maybe vote on that to give them the opportunity. Obviously, I don't want it to be a free-for-all. I'd want to, make sure that the people that are applying for these would be victims that have lost their homes. And if we can do something to help in that aspect, that's something that I think I know myself, and I'm sure the council would carry to give these people a home that's close to their home that's been burned down, and they can stay here while their house is being rebuilt. So if the city manager can bring something back, I would appreciate that. And with that, I will going to move on to item 12A, payment of claims. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I got Beatty and
Second.
Harris. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Mashburn,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Yes, sorry, yes, talking muted.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. We'll move to item 13, which is closed session. We have 3 items on the agenda. I do not believe that we'll report out, Ms. City Attorney.
That's correct. Nothing will
Okay.
be reportable.
Good night, Vacaville. Thank you.